Welcome to the webinar on Alternate Assessment Test Coordinator Responsibilities. My name is Bethany Spangenberg, and I am the Director of Alternate Assessment for the Arizona Department of Education. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Alternate Assessment website. During the live webinar, please keep yourself on mute and use the chat box to answer questions or to make comments. During this webinar, we will use the Alternate Assessment Test Coordinator checklist from the handbook to explain the responsibilities of the Alternate Assessment Test Coordinator, or AATC. The entire handbook, including the checklist along with accompanying instructions, is posted to the Alternate Assessment website under District Test Coordinators, Alternate Assessment, and Testing Dates and Updates tab. The handbook instructions do include screenshots if you would like to view those for reference as you navigate through the applications. The Alternate Assessment Unit will continue to send out notifications with instructions for each activity, as well as reminders to complete tasks. The AATC has many tasks throughout the school year, starting as early as September, going through the following August. Let's look at each of these tasks. The first task AATCs can start is verifying teachers in AD Connect as early as September. The ADE Alternate Assessment Unit sends the current list of test administrators to the AATC. The AATC then works with their ADE Connect entity administrator to add and remove accounts and roles so that the list of test administrators is current for the school year. In ADE Connect, accounts and roles continue across school years and need to be manually updated. Although this can be done anytime as needed, it is recommended that this be done before the Student Selector application opens. It will make your registration for student participation in alternate assessment go much easier. Also, as early as September, AATCs can start generating lists of students who are eligible for alternate assessments. Depending on the size of your LEA, the number of test administrators, and the IEP system you use, this could be a simple process or a complicated process. Starting early is helpful. It is recommended that AATCs gather lists of students from teachers and then confirm the list before registering students. AATCs will also need to gather information for students in grades 3 and 4 who are learning foundational Braille, as well as students with no observable mode of communication. The registration system will have all of the demographic student information needed, so the AATC may generate lists using names, SSIDs, organized by school, or any method that makes sense for the AATC. Now we will go through the registration process. We use the Student Selector application, or SSA, in ADE Connect to register students for alternate assessment in October and November. Students in tested grades who have SPED records and AZEDs will be on your student list in the application. The AATC will check the box for each student who is eligible for alternate assessment and assign a test administrator. If your test administrator list has been updated and your student records are accurate, this is a fairly quick process. AATCs also have the opportunity to indicate the need for Braille cards for students in grades 3 and 4 who are learning foundational reading using Braille. The District of Attendance selects students, so your tuitioned out and privately placed students will be on the list at the school they attend. AATCs will need to work together to ensure the correct students are selected when students have a different district of attendance than district of residence. This is the most important pre-administration activity for the Arizona Department of Education to prepare for testing. Therefore, it is critical that AATCs correctly register students and meet deadlines. As mentioned, the Alternate Assessment Unit relies on the Student Selector application to prepare for testing. This application generates lists of students to be uploaded into both AIMS A Science and MSAA. It generates lists of test administrators who will need accounts created in the MSAA system. Accounts in MSAA do not carry over from year to year. The application also helps calculate counts of performance task materials for AIMS-A Science so that all LEAs have the materials needed for testing before the window opens. It also gives us the Braille count needed for those, so those can be printed and shipped to districts before the MSAA testing window opens. Closing the Student Selector application in November encourages IEP teams to prepare students for alternate assessment by providing suitable instructional time before test administration according to eligibility criteria. This allows for at least 2 to 3 months of instruction before testing windows open. For more information on determining eligibility, please view the eligibility determination webinar posted on the website. Student lists in the SSA are taken from the list of students enrolled in tested grades and with SPED records and AZEDs. To add students to your list in the SSA, correct the student records in your student information system and sync with AZEDs. It may take a couple of days for the record change to process through all of the systems. You can verify your student records and AZEDs by checking your SPED 72 report. The test administrator list is taken from those with active accounts and the alternate assessment test administrator role in ADE Connect. If test administrators need to be added or removed, contact your ADE entity administrator. Additions to your list will occur as soon as the role is acknowledged by the test administrator. Removed test administrators occur in real time. However, you may need to refresh your screen or log out and log back in to see the change. The next activities for AATCs address the 1% threshold. Over 160 LEAs exceeded the 1% threshold for participation in alternate assessments in 2018. We are finishing the calculations for the 2019 administration. LEAs that exceed 1% participation in alternate assessments will need to go through a monitoring process as required by federal law. Calculations are based on the previous test administration. Percentages are calculated separately for ELA, mathematics, and science, and include all students who took a state assessment. Monitoring is a two-step process with two separate notifications. It is important to follow all instructions when the notifications are sent. Failure to comply with federally required monitoring may result in funds being withheld. The first step in the monitoring process starts in November. Each LEA who at least one student participated in alternate assessments during the previous administration will receive a notification. The LEAs that did not exceed 1% in any content area will be notified of their percentages for each content area and told that no further action is needed. The LEAs that did exceed 1% in any content area will be given percentages in each content area and instructions for submitting student information. The purpose of this step is to evaluate the fidelity to which eligibility criteria was followed by IEP teams at the LEA. The AATC will use the student's MET and IEP, as well as follow-up conversations with the IEP team to submit student scores, sample goals, and other documentation the IEP team used in determining eligibility. AATCs will not need to submit information for all students unless only one or two students participated in alternate assessment at that LEA. Student information is submitted in the 1% threshold application in ADE Connect. Flagged students will have a hyperlink. These are the students that require additional student information for monitoring eligibility determinations. Click on the hyperlink for each student and enter the required student information. When all information for that student has been entered, the student list will show a status of submitted. If scores are unavailable for a student Enter a 0 in the application and use the text box to describe why the scores were not entered. This activity must be completed before the action plan can be submitted. After reviewing the student information, the alternate assessment unit will assign the LEA to a tier. A second notification will be sent to AATCs with the tier designation, disproportionality, and instructions to develop and submit an action plan. The action plan will include current goal and percentages, justification, actions, disproportionality, and requests. The action plan is uploaded to the 1% threshold application. More details on this process is shared in the action plan webinar that is also posted on the website. AIMS A Science training will be available starting in December. The AIMS A Science system will be locked to the LEA until the AATC has completed training and submitted the verification form. AATCs are responsible for ensuring that all test administrators have completed the training. This year, AATCs will need to submit a statement of assurance that test administrators have completed training. AATCs have several options for monitoring training of test administrators. The recommendation is to hold a group training and retain a sign-in sheet. AATCs may also create an internal method of tracking individual training. AATCs will also need to provide an opportunity for test administrators to practice administration of the performance task portion of the assessment before administering AIMS A Science. AIMS A Science performance task materials will arrive in district by mid-January. AATCs must inventory the materials and distribute them to test administrators. A list of test administrators and counts of materials will be included in the shipment. Also, return labels will be sent with the test materials. Retain the return label in any packaging you may want to use when returning the materials. After distributing the materials, test administrators must inventory each packet. Note any discrepancies on the inventory sheet and notify the alternate assessment unit if additional materials are needed due to inventory errors. As soon as the testing window closes, collect the materials from the test administrators and return to ADE. Since the MSAA system opens just after AIMS A Science closes, it's easiest to return the materials right away before they are forgotten. More information on receiving and returning materials can be found in the AIMS A Science test manual and the required training. Throughout the AIMS A Science testing window, AATCs are responsible for monitoring test administration. An observation form will be posted on the website. These are not submitted to ADE. AATCs should choose observations based on the experience of the test administrator, students with challenging behavior, and students with no observable communication. AATCs may also observe based on any other identified needs. After confirming through observation, AATCs may submit requests to the alternate assessment unit for the no response option for students who do not have a reliable and observable mode of communication. The week following testing window, AATCs will need to verify that all students have completed testing and ensure an incident report has been submitted for any student with an incomplete status. AATCs will also assign tuitioned out and privately placed students to a school within the LEA, so you can receive the student reports. Students not assigned to a school within the LEA will not be considered tested for the purpose of accountability and meeting your 95% required testing rate. Then AATCs will submit the test with one click. Any AATC who does not submit tests will have their test submitted by the alternate assessment unit. ADE is unable to submit incident reports for incomplete tests, nor can we assign tuitioned out students. It's always best to complete this verification yourself. MSAA training will open when the system opens on March 2nd. Training modules are available directly in the MSAA system. User accounts for test coordinators and test administrators will be created on March 1st. ADE requires that alternate assessment test coordinators complete training before closing a test due to no observable communication. AATCs can monitor test administration training directly in the system. Again, it is best to hold a group training as test administrators repeatedly say this is the most effective method in helping them prepare for administration. Test administrators will not have access to any secure test materials, including student tests, until training is completed and they pass the final quiz. Similar to monitoring AIMS Science administration, AATCs are responsible for monitoring MSAA administration. An observation form will be posted on the website and must be submitted using the Google Form link that will be sent in March. AATCs should choose observations based on the experience of the test administrator, students with challenging behavior, and students with no observable communication. AATCs may also observe based on any other identified needs. After confirming through observation and following protocol, AATCs may close tests for students who do not have a reliable and observable mode of communication. AIMS Science district, school, and student reports will be available to download in May. The reports will be in ADE Connect. Please save these according to district policy. After changes in AATCs, the alternate assessment receives many requests for reports from previous years that we are not able to provide outside reporting windows. In addition to downloading reports, 2 hard copies of student reports are printed by ADE and shipped to LEAs. 1 copy will be sent home to parents, and the other copy is placed in the student secure file. MSAA district, school, and student reports will be available to download late summer or early fall. The reports will be available in the MSAA system. Similar to AIMS Science reporting, save these reports according to district policy. In addition to downloading reports, 2 hard copies of student by ADE and shipped to LEAs. 1 copy will be sent home to parents, and the other copy is placed in the student secure file. If notified, update data in the MSAA corrections application. This is usually in August when accountability is importing results to their systems. If a student is in the corrections application, this means that the student test record cannot be imported by the accountability team because of a discrepancy in the student records. There are usually only a dozen or 2 students in the application, so many AATCs will not need to complete this task. AATCs will only be notified if a record needs to be corrected. Complete instructions will accompany the notification. We have now reviewed each task for alternate assessment test coordinators. For the live presentation, please type your questions into the chat box. I hope you feel better prepared to meet the responsibilities of the alternate assessment test coordinator. If you need further assistance with alternate assessment, please contact the alternate assessment unit. Thank you.